Professor Sandy Africa.
Thank you, Program Director, and good morning to all. It's really a great privilege. I'm very excited about this workshop, and I'm happy that we could be the hosts of people who are here today, particularly our colleagues from the Cape Peninsula University of Technology and others who are online. So I've been briefed about the purpose of this workshop and wanted to just share a few introductory thoughts about it. As you all know, the aim of the workshop is to introduce and discuss subtitling as a language practice to a higher education audience. And as I've perhaps mentioned, the workshop is organized by the University of Pretoria, specifically our Unit for Academic Literacy, in collaboration with the Faculty of Applied Sciences at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, and of course with the support of the South African Centre for Digital Language Resources, known as SADiLaR in short. And for those of you who may not know, SADiLaR is a research infrastructure established by the South African government's Department of Science and Technology as part of the South African Research Infrastructure Roadmap, or SARIR. Well, just to say a little bit more about the kind of collaborations that we have with SADiLaR as UP. We have a permanent digitization node in the Department of African Languages and a multilingualism in the Writing Center project, also tied to the university, to the Unit for Academic Literacy. But today's workshop is part of a collaborative project by the two collaborators with SADiLaR support, as I mentioned, on multilingual parallel subtitling and dubbing as part of discipline-specific literacy in faculties at these two universities, these two South African universities. And as you know better than I do, my discipline is the political sciences, subtitling in South African universities has been studied for almost 20 years. So it's hardly a new phenomenon, but it's gained renewed prominence, and I think the program director has indicated the irony of us conducting our business here today in English. So this practice has gained prominence with the gazetting of the 2020 Language Policy Framework for Public Higher Education Institutions. And of course there'll be more about this policy framework when we watch in a moment the pre-interview between Mr. Simon Mutlanke from DHET and the head of the language unit, and also in the panel discussions later today. We thought it would be useful for just to locate us, and bear with me if you already have this information at your disposal, but we thought it might be useful because it's such an intimate collaboration and workshop if we recap some of the recent developments in language policy debates and issues at the University of Pretoria over the past few years. And I just want to mention that the university amended its language policy in June 2021. So it's quite a recent development in response to the DHET's reconfiguration of its language policy. But some of the salient clauses within the UP language framework or policy are the following. Yes, indeed, English as a language of teaching and learning. So that's in lectures, tutorials, assessments, obviously except in the case where the object of study is a language other than English, and in programs with profession-specific language requirements, and this is all subject to Senate approval. And because not everyone, in fact, possibly a minority of students have English as a first language, the university has to identify and provide the necessary resources to facilitate teaching and learning in the medium of English. But the policy also says that the university must provide spaces and resources for drawing on students' strongest languages, and it mentions in particular Sepedi and Afrikaans, but where possible also other South African languages, to assist students in understanding key concepts in their modules. Further, it says that English, Sepedi, and Afrikaans are the languages of official communication and administration on all campuses and in residences, with services being provided in other South African languages where requested, feasible, and affordable. And of course, I do think that this is where we're finding that perhaps we've been lagging. The university must adequately resource the development of Sepedi to a higher level of scientific discourse as another element, but also support and sustain Afrikaans as a language of scholarship. I could go on, but I think those are some of the key elements. And of course, to operationalize all of this, we have we're meant to have a language development plan. We're currently busy with revising it, and faculties are also meant to have their own language development plans. And this comes, of course, all of this is happening, as we know, in many of the institutions, but perhaps not necessarily as relevant to CPUT. The background, of course, the 2015-2016 period, student protests, the demand that Afrikaans should not receive a privileged status in higher education, and therefore the demand to be more inclusive when it comes to the language of teaching and learning, the court actions lodged by certain groups, in our case AfriForum taking the university to court, claiming that the move to transition to English as the language for teaching and learning was, as they put it, a gross violation of the constitutionally recognized language rights of Afrikaans students. And of course, the compromise which was reached was that there'd be a delay in the implementation of the new language policy, which was quite a departure. And subsequently, it actually was then implemented only in 2019, allowing students who had started their studies in Afrikaans to complete their qualifications in that language. Okay, this wasn't unique to Pretoria University, because we know that Stellenbosch, Free State, and other universities went to similar struggles with different trajectories, of course. Okay, but I have to say, and I think this is probably the most critical point I'd like to make, that in a sense, the universities being absorbed in these legal contestations, I don't say as a direct result of that, but certainly parallel to that, when it was meant to have promoted Sepedi as a language of scholarship, was not doing so. I don't want to say complicit, but I could say that it has not done by any stretch of the imagination as much as it should have. And this, in fact, has become quite an urgent requirement, need that has been expressed by different constituencies at the university, including the Institutional Transformation Forum, which has, in fact, demanded and insisted that the university both put in place the structures as well as provide the resources to ensure the promotion of languages. And as linguists, I think you'll know more what that entails, be it developing dictionaries in our language centers, providing the writing skills, be it actually allowing dissertations to be written in those languages. which need to be promoted, and so on, but you'd be able to articulate them much better than I have been. So we come to the point then that there's a need to look at how all the different strategies and resources can be harnessed, and I do think it is worth it just to quote the Department of Higher Education's language policy framework that talks to the way in which institutions are lagging behind, because they've said that the persistent underdevelopment and undervaluing of indigenous languages should not be allowed if public higher education institutions are to meet the diverse linguistic needs of their student populations. Conditions must therefore be created for the development and strengthening of indigenous languages as languages of meaningful academic discourse, as well as sources of knowledge in the different disciplines of higher education. So I should, in conclusion, mention perhaps some of the things that the university is doing through its language unit. In the Unit for Academic Literacy, it has started offering subtitling as a language service for enhancing educational videos. And this is seen as a means of promoting inclusivity for students from non-English speaking backgrounds and those who are deaf or hard of hearing. Subtitles can be either in the same language as that of the audio, so for example, English titles with English audio, or the titles can offer a translated version of the audio, and I believe that we've offered this in Sepedi, isiZulu, and Afrikaans, with some interesting results, which I've been told about. I found them fascinating because they suggested that perhaps we make certain assumptions about students' language needs, and I suppose part of the discussion ought to be about how do we make a proper evaluation of what the needs in those in the classroom are. So just to quote from some research, studies from Europe and the US have since the 80s indicated the benefits, obviously, in educational settings of subtitling, including enhanced comprehension, retention, vocabulary acquisition. But studies that have been conducted at South African institutions indicate that these benefits also apply in our context. And one PhD candidate will present an overview of South African subtitling research, and our director of the Unit for Academic Literacy, Dr. Angu, who is here, will also offer reflections on a subtitling study that was done within the Faculty of Health Sciences. So there's clearly going to be lots to talk about. I wish I could have been here throughout the workshop, because I've been nominated to serve on the university's language development plan task team, and I think I'd benefit a lot. But I'm looking forward to hearing what the outcomes of this workshop are, because I think that it will definitely assist us, and more especially because we'll have the added benefit of hearing what colleagues from other institutions are doing. So with those, and I hope I have not taken up too much of the time of this workshop, I'd like to once again wish you a warm welcome. You seem to have brought the sunshine back from the Cape. Very strange, but okay, we'll take it. We've been drowning in rain for the past few days. Wish you a comfortable stay here, and certainly a very productive workshop to everyone here, and of course the people who are online. Thank you.